The problems facing New Zealand's primary sector have been mounting at a rapid pace. So I think it's time for open hearts and open minds. Welcome to Sarah's Country for another episode of putting our food and fibres producers' interests in the forefront of each and every interview to ensure that we can continue to be successful into the future, but also sustainable. And sometimes I feel that this word is so associated with just the environment that we forget about he tangata, the people. All of our successes will come from a community that recognises the attributes of people acting in the best interests of the environment. And to do that, we must, as the air hostesses tell us each time we're about to take off in their safety briefing, look after yourself before anyone else. New Zealand's current coalition government repeatedly has forgotten in their communication style and the primary industry policies that we have seen that if you do not unite people around a common goal as a community, you cannot affect behavioural change, and then putting the environment before all else. But here's a thought. New Zealand, are we going to let the government direct our future, or are we going to continue to farm and grow in harmony with nature as we always planned to do so? Rising anxiety is going to be the biggest handbrake on productivity in this country. So, as one of our guests tonight is going to share, fill the fountain, not the drain. I love it. I'm your host, Sarah Perriam, and alongside my wonderful producer, Joel Rock, an Irish native and nearly a converted Kiwi, we love bringing you the matters that matter most to our passionate food and fibre producers, Monday to Wednesday from 7 o'clock live across 15 media channels online, and then available on demand on podcasts. Simply search Sarah's Country. And if you're listening on demand on podcasts, we would immensely appreciate you giving us a wee review that will bump this wee show up the ranks to ensure our messages are getting heard by many, many more. Now, all of our interviews in Sarah's Country are produced with the talented stable of Farmers Weekly journalists and analysts, where you can source your daily headlines in your inbox each day to keep up to date by signing up to Daily Digest. If you go to farmersweekly.co.nz /e-newsletters, you can join the tens of thousands of Kiwis who use this as their go-to news source every day. Now, as we focused on inclusion and building a community here at Sarah's Country, there seems to be a lot of exclusion feeling around the world at the moment. New Zealand is talking about suspending its extradition treaty to Hong Kong over China's controversial security law. New Zealand is contemplating charging expat Kiwis $3,000 to come home and quarantine. And even poor Meghan and Harry, the royals, they are, of course, facing permanent extradition from the royal family after a hurtful revelation in a new book. The world just feels super cruel at the moment, and so our sense of belonging is the most important thing to survival. In my mind, I've actually really enjoyed following my old MediaWorks colleague, Lloyd Burr, who's currently the European correspondent. His passion for sticking up for expat Kiwis is absolutely amazing. He's said Winston told them to stay put. So I'd love to know, how do you feel about Kiwis coming home and having to pay $3,000 to quarantine? Do you have family members in this scenario, or are you one of them watching this show globally as well? And how do you feel? I'd love to know in the comments below wherever you're watching live, or even email me, sarah@perriammedia.com. Are the government out of touch, I feel, with the team of 5 million Kiwis that live internationally and have the right to vote in the up-and-coming election as well? I'd love to know your thoughts, as well as let's have a bit of fun, as we said about the royals. Who's your favourite, past and present? I used to be a big Harry fan growing up. We're similar age. He was the first cheeky ginger I knew before Ed Sheeran came along, of course. Are you a royalist? Our family were. I remember my mum, who never cried. Stoic, tell you what, but bawling her eyes out when we came home one day from school as Princess Diana had died. Now, Joel, I know that you must be a royalist, being a proud expat, I shouldn't have said I know. I'm asking you a question. Joel, are you a royalist, being a proud expat UK citizen?
Yeah, the royals are all right.
Do you have a favourite?
A favourite? I mean, the Queen's pretty cool, I guess.
She's just,
Yeah, the fact that she's keeping on going at the age she is, and she does not stop. She is a machine.
And how's that, right at that age, right at the end of her career, she's just gone boom, boom, boom with controversy.
Oh, yeah, I mean, she's yeah.
And I've got to ask you, Joe, also, I really want your thoughts on this because, of course, you're going home to quarantine, I understand. What's your thoughts on charging people coming home $3,000? I'd love to just generally know your opinion on this.
Well, I mean, I couldn't afford to do that if I had to do that back home. Luckily, because...
Would you have stayed?
I would, well, yeah. I probably wouldn't have been able to afford to go home, so I'd have to have found a way. But no, I don't have the quarantine when I go home because New Zealand's done so well. So I'm lucky, but I could not imagine paying that much money to have to stay in a hotel for 2 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. You were sharing with me earlier about how Korea, when you turn up, that's cool.
South Korea seem to be doing it quite well. They basically drop off enough supplies, toiletries, food, everything you need to survive for 2 weeks in quarantine. And yeah, they seem to be handling it a whole lot better, but I don't know where their money's coming from for that.
Whereas the Kiwis coming home, they just missing out on some durries and a 6-pack of beer. They don't want toiletries to break out. We shouldn't joke, of course. But yeah, it's certainly a challenging time. I'd love to know your comments. Have you got family in that situation? Really feel for you. It's a real challenge. And of course, of political football at the moment, which is very sad. And of course, we'll get to those comments throughout the show, as well as questions for our guests. Send them in, and of course I can ask them live throughout the show. So who have we got coming up in today's show? Juggling farm work and family responsibilities are a challenge many rural women and men face. After 720 Taranaki sharemilker and 2019 Dairy Woman of the Year winner, Trish Rankin will join us to share her top tips. I'm saying Trish's top tips for achieving a decent work-life balance, especially at the moment with calving, shearing, lambing, you name it. This is all, of course, in conjunction with the good team at Farmstrong. Changes are being made to the governance of the FMG Young Farmer of the Year contest after an in-depth review. New Zealand Young Farmers Board Chair Ash-Leigh Campbell will join us live in studio after 7:30 to discuss how the contest management will look going forward. And to close the show, as today, you may have remembered, past Sarah's Country viewers and listeners, that wonderful sheep and beef farmer from Southland, South Otago, Amy Blakely, who we had on the show a few weeks back, I think it was, who petitioned to the government to get wool carpets in all the government buildings, and of course Kiwi Build, if that's so what it's called anymore, was presented today in Parliament. And we're going to celebrate that fact with Cavalier Brenworth's commitment to only selling wool carpets and rugs within 12 months. This is amazing. Chief Executive Paul Alston is going to join us after 7:45 to discuss how they intend on phasing out the synthetic carpet from their offering. But first up on Sarah's Country, after the break, how are farmers financially tracking on average? What is a dairy farm break-even price this year? And has this rain penetrated those subsoils to see a positive spring and break that back of that drought? So joining us after the break to discuss more is the very talented Phil Journeaux, agricultural economist for AgFirst. Following today's AgFirst webinar presenting their findings from surveying their farmers. It'll be very interesting. All that up next on Sarah's Country. This is Sarah's Country.
One of the first things you learn when you live out here is where to shop for the things you need to live out here.
Like electric fencing.
Or horse feed.
Or bee suits.
Children's.
Chook food.
Do you want a couple of these?
Or something stylish to wear. Not everyone's got stuff like this.
But at Farmlands we do, and then some.
So if you need anything to help you farm,
Grow.
Milk. Drench.
Rhea, come on in.
Because we're out here too.
Hey, where you going, man?
Even if you really, really wanted to, and you had a bunch of spare time and nothing better to do, even if you were overcome by some strange desire that you couldn't explain, even if you were determined to do it, no matter what, we still think it's unnecessary and, to be honest, probably not a good use of your time. But yeah, technically, you could meet your shoes.
Hi.
But that doesn't mean you should. Allbirds wool runners, cosy runners made from wool.
A visionary roadmap was touted by Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern as a way to unlock greater value from the force that is New Zealand's primary sector. The force that is New Zealand's primary sector, in my mind, needs to ensure that the first sustainability we focus on is the profitability of our farmers' balance sheets first. Joining us now, following the survey of their farmers, is AgFirst agricultural economist Phil Journeaux. Good evening, Phil.
Hi, Sarah. Pleased to be here.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I understand that you had a AgFirst webinar today, and I'd love if you could break down first how you go about measuring the data from your clients in particular to come up with what the state of the nation and, of course, your predictions going forward.
Well, we've been doing the survey for several years. In essence, we monitor 20-25 farms, if you like. We cover dairying across the Waikato Bay of Plenty and sheep and beef farming across the central North Island hill country. So we monitor the farms, so we go out, we collect the financials for the year that's just finished, which is 1920, and then we do a budget for the farmers going for the year ahead, which is 2021. We then have a meeting with a number of industry people just to run through the results and sort of validate the information, if you like, and then we apply them to our model farms, and the model farms are based on the average or the mean statistics for the particular region.
Interesting. We were talking about the class system that Beef and Lamb used to use. I'm not sure if it still uses it in regards to benchmarking. Yeah, the similar, and that's very much taken into account of what you're doing as well for your measurement and in comparison.
Yes.
Yeah, and so therefore, what were some of those results that were coming out sort of startling, or were they sort of on par in comparison to previous years?
Well, if I touch on dairying first, the season just finished was financially, we would call a reasonable year. The model farm ran a profit, paid debt, spent money on capital expenditure and development and that sort of thing. So as I say, a reasonable sort of year. The year coming up, again, very similar. Sarah, last year was hit by the drought, which people understand, but offset by a very good payout. Payout for this year coming has dropped a bit, obviously, but production's come up a bit. So all things being equal, reasonable year past, reasonable year coming up.
Sure.
On the sheep, sorry.
No, continue.
On the sheep and beef side, slightly different story. The year just passed, again, reasonable. The model farm broke even, if you like, and again, some capex spending and some debt repayment and that sort of thing. The year coming up, not quite as good, if you like. Really, the impacts of the drought and the impacts of COVID, if you like, in the sense that lambing percent likely to be down, schedules and that also down a bit. looking to rebuild our cattle numbers because of the drought, would sold some more off, if you like. So for the year coming up for our hill country sheep and beef guys, at the moment we're looking at a reasonable deficit and not spending anything on capex and development and that sort of thing.
Really says something about rural business confidence going forward in the sheep and beef sector, if that's anything to go by. I'd love to ask you about this high New Zealand dollar and the effect of cost of inputs. Is that coming into play?
Well, excuse me. I mean, I guess it always does, in the sense that if the dollar's high, the schedules and payouts tend to go down, but of course the inputs, fertiliser, etc., fuel, also go down. So I wouldn't say they balance each other out, but there is something of a trade-off between the two.
Okay. And in terms of going back to dairy, that break-even milk price, how's that looking for the OPEX on dairy farms?
Well, again, in the figures we've published over the last few years, in a broad sense, that the break-even payout we need is in the sort of the high $5, $6 per kilogram milk solids bracket. So that covers things like farm working, debt servicing, drawings, depreciation and tax. Over the last 3 years, the payout's been north of $6. So we've been, as I say, operating reasonably well. The expectation is of another payout for this coming year north of $6. So again, we're above break even, so we have got some money to spend on the farm.
How are you feeling about the levels of debt and debt repayments at the moment with the way interest rates are?
Well, variable impact, I guess, Sarah. Certainly the drop in interest rates have helped significantly, and you see that in the model. Our debt repayments, or interest payment, if you like, dropped from, a few years ago it'd be up around $1.20 a kilo. Now it's about 90 odd cents. So makes a big difference. Certainly a lot of farms are paying back debt. The banks are toughening up a bit in that respect. Luckily, as I say, we've had quite reasonable payouts for the last few years, so we can afford to do that.
Let's talk about this latest rain in Northland and Hawke's Bay in particular. From one extreme to the other. It's absolutely crazy. How is the soil moisture levels looking, and is it any indication around a positive spring, or has it just completely run off and flooded?
Well, my main comments would really be around the Waikato Bay of Plenty. We've had reasonable rain, nothing as dramatic as Northland, obviously. So the topsoil is wet, mild conditions, the grass is growing quite well. The subsoil, though, is still dry, and in one sense we need a lot of rain to wet that subsoil. In another sense, we don't really want a lot of rain, aka Northland, because of all the problems that causes. But so at the moment, in a lot of areas, the subsoil is dry. If we get another dry summer, that could or will cause a lot of problems.
As you're sitting down with your farmers planning the year ahead, Phil, what are some of those key things you're making sure they are keeping a close eye on?
Well, in the financial sense, Sarah, generally, I guess, make sure the farm's operating well. They're spending the money they need to in terms of fertiliser and R&M and animal health and all the rest of it. So the business as a whole is ticking along all right. Assuming you've got a surplus, you're then looking at things, particularly debt servicing. As I say, that's a reasonably hot issue. The next is what I call capex in a broad sense. There's a lot of expenditure happening, particularly around environmental compliance on dairy farms. A number of our clients are spending a lot of money upgrading effluent systems and all that sort of thing. They're also taking the opportunity to improve the milking shed, bringing in a bit of technology and all the rest, mainly as sort of labour-saving effort, if you like. But as I say, the key thing really initially is to make sure the farm's operating okay.
Absolutely. Looking after the foundations, Phil, as well.
Exactly, Sarah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Hey, thank you so much, Phil Journeaux, as agricultural economist for AgFirst, and this following their annual survey. Of course, end of years, see everyone starting to pore over the columns and rows and work out what and they can predict for the future, because that's really sometimes what it is. Thank you so much, Phil, for joining us. Now, next on Sarah's Country, looking after themselves as well as their farm is now a major priority. We're going to be joined by Taranaki sharemilker Trish Rankin to share her tips on some hard lessons learned over her farming career and how to find time for a break. This is Sarah's Country.
The challenge New Zealand has with meeting its Paris Accord targets is that agriculture does bear the brunt of what we emit. Unlike other countries who have transport and energy as their largest emitters, agriculture is our number one. So if that's the one that we can do the most about to meet our Paris Accord targets, then that's just what we have to do. We are Trish and Glenn Rankin, and we are farming with our family in Kaupakanui, Taranaki. We work for Parananini Kiwai Tōtara, which is the local Māori incorporation. We have 460 cows. We farm here together with our 4 children, Charlie who's 13, Harry who's 12, Tom who's 8 and Paddy is 5. When I first met Glenn and he decided to go farming, I knew absolutely nothing about anything apart from what a cow looked like. And so for a long time I was the teaching person while Glenn was the farming person, and my contribution on farm was just to do the GST return and the wages. In 2015 we entered the Dairy Industry Awards for the first time. The feedback from the judges was around the fact that we were kind of pulling in different directions, but the power of doing it together was probably where we needed to go. So that's when we first started looking at trying to become a herd-owning sharemilker. And that's taken us on a journey from the Wairarapa to the Hawke's Bay to Northland, and now we're down here in Taranaki. In June last year, the Dairy Action for Climate Change plan came out alongside MPI and MFE. And one of their roles was to identify 12 people in New Zealand who they could use as climate change champions or ambassadors. One of the things that interested me about that role was the front loading of information that we were going to get from experts, which then allows us to be able to attend our local discussion groups, to go to local meetings, to talk to our neighbours about climate change. Farmers I don't think need to be worried about what the government's going to do. Farmers need to be prepared for it though, and there is going to be changes that's going to be required. Whether or not you're meat or milk or horticulture or any other form of agriculture, there's definitely an appetite from everyone around the world to be doing it in a much better, smarter, environmentally friendly way. You're going to have to know what you're emitting. You're going to need to have better information so that you can make better farming decisions. The good news is there's lots of really good research and good resources to help you do it. So that's not something that people have to be worried about, because there's going to be help and advice and information. I think New Zealand is realising that they need to be more and more attached to their consumers, and the way that you get to the consumers' hearts is by showing that your people are looked after, that your land is looked after, and that your animals are looked after. Sometimes doing things in a better way, resulting in better outcomes for your land and your people, is just as successful as a profit-based decision at the end of the day.
Now, juggling farm work and family responsibilities is a challenge that we all know very, very well. And of course, many rural women and men face. Taranaki sharemilker and 2019 Dairy Woman of the Year winner Trish Rankin and her husband Glenn run a 460 cow sharemilking operation near Manaai. Life's plenty busy for the couple. They're also raising 4 kids, 15, 13, 9 and 7. Whew, overwhelming. Joining us now is Trish. Thank you, Trish, for finding the time to join us on Sarah's Country.
Look, it's so nice to be here. And actually, I was just saying, have a shower and put a nice top on as opposed to just straight into my jammies after I've got in from the farm. So lovely to be here.
Oh, I know. I crave the weekends. It's just active wear weekends because, yeah, totally. Now, Trish, there's a fantastic Farm Strong article that's just gone up live on farmersweekly.co.nz, and it's talking about your advice around being a busy farmer's wife and farmer, and of course the struggles originally when it was just yourself and your husband farming in the far north. Can you tell us about those early days and what it was like?
Yeah, I guess, as you're sort of developing your family and you're having your children, things, I guess, in a woman's life change quite substantially. I was a deputy principal at a big school, had my own career. And as we had more and more children, things had to change for me. And having to find my place and what I could do and offer for our business was a real sort of challenge that we had to overcome. Really came to the fore, I guess, sort of 5 years ago. We were in the far north. We were on a really difficult farm. It was just Glenn and I. There was no farm staff. And we really had to concentrate and look at how we were going to carry on farming and carry on enjoying farming in that situation. And we were so lucky to move to Taranaki. And here we've found it all. We've found the ocean, the mountain, the schools, the opportunities for our kids, and it's a really great place to farm for a family.
Yeah, absolutely. I like what you've said here in the article about, you just have to work out that you can't do it all in a day. How do you time manage?
Yeah, Google Calendars is really handy. So everyone has the calendar in my family, and they all get alerts and reminders when things are coming up. So that's quite a big handy thing. But I guess you do squeeze a lot into your day. And I remember watching a John Kerwin ad a number of years ago where he talked about being an active relaxer, and that kind of made quite a lot of sense to me, because actually doing stuff for your community or doing stuff for groups or schools or those other things you do, that's almost relaxing. For me, getting out and about, meeting people, seeing people, getting changed out of your farm clothes, all that stuff. And I guess when you enjoy it, you always make that time for it.
And that's the thing you brought up earlier, is about not only learning how to farm, but also how to farm through the challenges, but also not forgetting to enjoy farming, because everybody has spends more time at work, don't they, in their life? So we may as well always hold on to that. What is the one thing that you constantly remind yourself of every day to make sure that you do enjoy this career?
My kids could never live in a town where they had neighbours. I constantly remind myself that there's no way that we wouldn't get noise control called on for boys playing outside on the front lawn, playing rugby, riding their motorbikes and running around. Like, seriously, we could not have neighbours. So, that to me, just that country life, living out in an area where the kids can go out and go for a run or go and play is really important to us.
Do you know what I find really fascinating is the real focus in the last, I'd like to say, 5 years, and Farm Strong have been right behind this, is that even though there's physical demands on farm during the day, that focus is still remaining on fitness outside of the farm. Well, sometimes seems on top of the farm. But how has it been for you?
Yeah, really interesting. I look at that on-farm story that was played before, and that was me plus 25 kilos, filmed a year ago. And I look at it now and I think, it's interesting, I guess, to sort of reflect on how far you've come. But we had been working on sort of nutrition quite well, and I guess we'd always thought that we were reasonably active. You're always on the farm, or you're walking, or you're putting a fence up, or you're doing something that's moving your body, but it was never really getting into sort of that cardio zone or lifting your heart rate. And I was really lucky that I came across an online fitness group called Strong Woman, and it's run by a dairy farm.
Oh, I'm sorry to laugh, but it's quite funny because we were just joking off air that last time Trish was on a call, she just randomly dropped out and she hoped that it wouldn't happen again. But she's back.
Oh, that seriously happened.
It didn't happen.
It's like I'm just
the beauty of live TV. I love it. Continue on, as you were saying.
Where did we get to, Sarah?
That you just joined a group called Strong Woman.
Yeah. So, and I guess, a busy life, you've got to find time to fit stuff in. And so being able to log in and do my own classes at my own time, that made a massive difference. And it's a group of women who are all pretty similar. You just want to get fitter and be really cool for your family and be able to go and do stuff with your family without saying, sorry, I can't do that, I'm not fit enough.
Yeah.
Like tonight, tonight I finished milking, finished doing the calves and went out for a run. And that I'd never have done that. Like 6 months ago, I couldn't even run. So let alone go and do it after a full day of work.
Oh, fantastic. You're a real inspiration, Trish, in more ways than one. I'd love to know, what are some of those top tips in terms of putting yourself first when you've got so many people dependent on you, young children and a farm, etc., and especially making sure you get that much needed sleep?
Yeah, I guess it is funny because as a woman, you tend to not put yourself first. You're about number 5 on the list if you've got sort of 4 kids and a husband who have to come before you. But it is actually about just finding those little things that can fit in with your family and with your farm that mean something to you. So in April, I went away. We were going to go away on a girls' weekend. Of course, we were in COVID lockdown. So we delayed that into July. And just going to Martinborough with a group of people who I've known for 15 years, you just get filled up again. You have laughs, you have a few wines, just that sort of stuff. But, you can't sort of do that all the time. So even just those little things like sitting down, watching Netflix at lunchtime, chilling out, this is washing to be folded and yes, there's jobs that could be done on the farm, but actually just be kind to yourself because you've got to kind of make sure that you do that. And I guess just making sure that identify the things that you really like and just work out how you can do them. So I really like doing study. I really like doing my Kellogg project. I'm doing my Bradford University MBA study. I had an assignment due last week. We just started carving, but because you enjoy it, you make the time for it. And so, I guess one of the things I feel really strongly about is if you sort of begrudge or if you're like, oh, I don't want to go and do that, you're probably doing the wrong thing. If you've got a committee meeting and you go, oh, I can't be bothered going to that, you're probably on the wrong committee. So, find the stuff that you actually enjoy doing.
Exactly. Absolutely. Learning the power of no. It's quite satisfying when you really master that, for sure. Thank you so much, Trish. Some amazing words of inspiration there. And of course, this is titled Fill the Fountain, Not the Drain. I absolutely love that. And we're going to take that forward with us as we all do a little bit better this year to take good care of ourselves. And in turn, we can look after our animals better and our land better. I really appreciate your time, Trish Rankin. She was the 2019 Dairy Woman of the Year. And by absolute consequence? No, that's not the right word. Coincidence. Oh my goodness. I have the 2020 Fonterra Dairy Woman of the Year up next on Sarah's Country, but not in regards to that. In her other hat as the chair of the New Zealand Young Farmer Board, as there has been changes made to the governance of how the FMG Young Farmer of the Year will move forward after an in-depth review. Ash-Leigh Campbell is going to join us live in studio next to discuss. This is Sarah's Country.
Every morning, Kiwi farmers wake up to produce high quality food. Yet, every night, some Kiwi families are going to sleep hungry. Meet the Need is a charity founded by farmers, and it's here to change all that. We're about New Zealand farmers feeding New Zealand families by donating a small part of what we grow when we can. You can help us make sure no one in New Zealand goes to sleep hungry again. Visit meettheneed.org and follow us on social.
We're a large deer farm and very proud deer farmer at that. I grew up here as a little boy. It is just an amazing lifestyle. I could never live in a city ever again. Just the big open spaces and just the peacefulness of it all. I think deer are very majestic, very intelligent animal. Having deer that are under pressure or anything like that or overstocked, they really don't perform as well. You should really be spreading them out on beautiful pastures. keeping them happy. A happy deer is a good deer. And good feed, good grass. We renew our pastures all the time in the paddock, so we're always getting the best quality grass. Well, I guess in the wild, they don't have the luxury of the grass that we put in front of them here as a farmed animal. I believe we've got some of the best English type deer in the country, if not the world. And to associate our brand with Silver Fern Farms brand works for us. Without the likes of Silver Fern Farms, then there's no point doing this. So they're very, very important for us. I'm Mark Tapley, very proud suppliers of venison to Silver Fern Farms.
Now, 52 years, the Young Farmer of the Year contest has been around, and the current governance structure has been from a 4-board member separate to the New Zealand Young Farmers Board and recently chaired by Rebecca Brown. In an in-depth review by the chair of New Zealand Young Farmers, Ash-Leigh Campbell, there has been some significant changes, and she's joining us now in studio to discuss why and what the future looks like. Thank you for taking the time to come in. I mean, obviously you're a local, so it's
popped on in.
It's nice to start having people in studio. I'm really enjoying it. And of course, Young Farmers is based locally here, and you've been the chair re-elected.
Yes, so we just had our AGM in Christchurch, coming up a month now, and yes, successfully reappointed to the board. So they're stuck with me for another 3 years, unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever way we want to look at it.
Yes, you're obviously doing a good job enough to be re-elected. So in 2019, you commissioned this in-depth review. Mm-hmm. What was some of your concerns initially to come out of that?
Yeah, so back in 2019 at our AGM, I think up in the North Island in Napier, we announced to our membership base that we were looking to do an independent review of the governance structure of the FMG Young Farmer of the Year competition. Now, that was carried out by one of our independent board members, Sam Robinson, and I guess unfortunately/fortunately, we also have carried out an operational review of the competition as well due to the cancellation of Grand Final in 2020, which we're looking to host again next year in Christchurch, so another home affair. But yeah, I guess one of the main drivers for that was we were looking to realign the strategy alongside the New Zealand Young Farmers Board strategy and also look to, create further engagement with our volunteers,
And was it always the case that the separate board was for the fact of the huge amount of management and resources that goes into running a contest of such significance, to keep it separate from the membership?
Yeah, I mean, back in 2017, there was efforts to shift and create a contest board. We tried and attempted that, and unfortunately it hasn't been as successful, and we've, stumbled across some challenges the last few years. So hence the drivers to change that structure now going forward. So, I mean, do you want me to speak a little bit around what the structure looks like?
I'd love to, absolutely, in terms of the new model.
So the new model is going to consist of 2 New Zealand Young Farmer board members. These positions are yet to be appointed. We're looking to appoint these positions at our August New Zealand Young Farmers board meeting. Also to join this new subcommittee will be our principal sponsor, Michelle Stevens from FMG. And we're looking to fill 3 remaining positions on what we call appointed terms. Now, these will be 3-year rolling terms, and we're looking to bring along James Goodwin and also Nigel Woodhead, who sat previously on the contest board, so bringing that continuity forward into the new subcommittee. And we're looking to appoint 1 more position in a few weeks' time. So those applications open on the 3rd of August. Will be open for a couple of weeks. So I guess is my small opportunity to plug for anyone listening in tonight. If you love what the FMG Young Farmer of the Year competition is all about, and you think that you can give back to not only this great competition but our organisation, we would love you to apply for the position.
And what about that strategy moving forward for New Zealand young farmers? I mean, it's been through some challenging times, and of course a new CEO with Linda Copperfield. What would you like to see the organisation become?
Yeah, gosh, I don't know if we can call her a new CEO now. She's put her feet under the table for a couple of years.
She's gone from couch surfing to an actual hotel room probably onto it now.
Yeah, so when both Linda and I joined the Young Farmers Board 2 years ago, one of the first things we did was sit down and look at that strategy and refresh it as a board as a whole. So we've really gone back to what we believe is the core of New Zealand Young Farmers organisation, which is strengthening and growing our clubs and membership. We've had some challenges financially, 18 months to 2 years ago. We've come through that now. The books are looking good and we're seeking different funding opportunities. So like I said before, we're looking to grow and strengthen our clubs and our membership because we believe that is the core of our organisation, and if we have strong clubs, strong membership, we're therefore going to have a strong FMG Young Farmer of the Year competition. So we think they align really nicely together with our strategy, and we want to wrap and grow and strengthen the competition as well.
And of course it's very sad in what happened with COVID, and of course when there were certain district finalists that were regional finalists, that were already through and having to go through that process again. But of course, it's exciting to have that opportunity to have a refreshed focus for 2021.
Yes, the events team have been working very, very hard the last couple of months here in Christchurch, ensuring that we hit the ground for our district competitions, which start off beginning of October. So we'll probably blink and we'll be there already in a couple of months' time. So the next season is just around the corner and we're looking forward to it. It's going to be an exciting one, so make sure you get your entries in early.
I'm going to ask you while I've got you here around leadership in the primary sector and the significance of winning these types of awards, and yourself taking up the 2020 Fonterra Dairy Woman of the Year, which of course comes with it a lot of responsibility and leadership in the sector. How important is it that we're nurturing that future leadership in our sector? Yeah, and what does that look like into the future as well?
I think it's so important. If you look at, these incredible awards that hold so much prestige, the FMG Young Farmer of the Year competition has been around for 52 years now. And if you look at the long list of previous winners, they've gone on to do great things within our industry. So I think, if we've got a showcase, prestigious event like this, that we're capturing and exciting those young people that are going to be tomorrow's leaders. So, really excited for what our industry can do for the future.
Oh, wonderful. I look forward to it. And of course, you've got some fantastic names there on the existing board. And as Ashley said, if you're interested, is there an age cap?
No, there's not.
Okay.
So, like I said, there'll be more information out there in a few weeks' time.
Fantastic.
So keep your eyes peeled across our social medias.
Passion for the New Zealand Young Farmer of the Year contest, then make sure that you keep an eye out for that final directorship on that board as they take it forward to 2021 again in Christchurch. Now, coming up after the break to finish, I have got some messages here that I do need to read out. Amy Blakely has said that the petition closes on the 31st of July, so still 3 days to sign. Now, this is the petition to the government to get all wall carpets in all government buildings and, of course, state housing. It's going to be presented next Tuesday. My apologies, I misread that from Twitter. If anyone wants to join them in Parliament at 12:30, make sure you head along there on the steps of Parliament and get in touch with Amy Blakely. You can find her easy on Twitter. And Anthony has said, I think it should cost to come home now, as the risk of you being a risk to the rest of us is much greater risk. There's a lot of risks. That's your thoughts on that, Anthony. And he loves the Queen. I think the rest do not fully understand their roles. There we are. Proud royalist is young Anthony. Actually, just before we go, favourite royal.
Oh gosh, the Queen.
Everybody loves the Queen. Fair enough. Absolutely. No, she's done a very talking about doing
women in leadership.
Talking about women in leadership.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Coming up after the break, as I was saying, Amy Blakely was talking there about the wall petition, and one New Zealand company, Cavalier Bremworth, the Cavalier Corporation, has taken this bold move to say that within 12 months they will only be selling wool, carpet and rugs and phasing out synthetics. This is an exciting move that I know a lot of strong wool farmers will welcome, and we will welcome their CEO, Paul Alston, after the break. This is Sarah's Country.
Growing a better world takes courage. It takes foresight and vision. It's about dreaming big, then being brave enough to follow that dream through. To create a world where food is plentiful, soils are healthy, and rivers run crystal clear. A world where we grow more with less, where livestock is tended to with care. Energy is friend, not foe, and waste is a valuable resource. This is the world you're already shaping through imagination, innovation, and determination. So as small steps become huge leaps, you move boldly forward. And Rabobank is there beside you to help grow a better world together.
Now, the growing expectation of consumers for sustainable and natural fibres has seen a pivot in the strategy for Cavalier Corporation. Of course, Cavalier Bremworth, the producer of carpets here in New Zealand, to aim for all wool carpets and rugs within the next 12 months, gaining some great traction across media in New Zealand. And joining us now is CEO Paul Alston. Good evening, sir.
Sarah, how you going?
Good. For those who have been listening and watching along to Sarah's Country, it will not be a surprise that I'm excited about this news. I'm being passionate about what we can do about our dye wool industry. Now, you've obviously been actively a part of following what's going on with the price of strong wool. Was that a consideration, or is it actually market-led, this decision?
No, this decision is nothing to do with the wool price, and it's very low at the moment, like everyone knows, and it's not sustainable at those levels. So we can handle an increase in wool price, and we actually think it's beneficial for the industry if there is one. No, this is about I guess the main decision for us to go into a pivot to wool only is it's what we believe we do best. We think we do it better than anyone in the world. And we just don't believe synthetics is our future. We can't really compete with the big US, Chinese manufacturers because they have economies of scale. And really a synthetic carpet is only really a cut pile. There's no texture, no loop, no structure to it. So, and we believe the world's changing. There's, I think, 5% of US landfill is carpet now, and that's the plastics are leaching into the waterways, and there's a big anti-plastic movement, and there's all this, consumers are becoming more and more aware of what they're buying. I don't think everyone's made the connection yet between the carpet is made out of plastic, and we're going to push that really hard.
Great.
And you'll see some of our marketing and some of the consumer awareness work that we've done, which is quite surprising.
And I'm doing my bit, Paul, over here. I posted on Instagram the other day about a carpet layer suggesting that you wouldn't want to put synthetic in if you were had a house fire and your kids were crawling across burning river of plastic. But it comes back to that memory of that rhino on the synthetic carpet that really slammed the wearability of wool. Are we getting around that misleading message, or is that misleading, or are they correct in this? Have we come far in technology?
I think there's a lot of misleading messages, and there's a reason why all our executives at Cavalier Bremworth have a wool carpet. None of us buy synthetics because the synthetic carpet doesn't perform as well. Simple as that. We have customers that have gone to synthetics, and they'll have their carpet down for 5 or 6 years, and they'll come back and say to us, I'll go back to wool. If someone comes into us and said, I've had my carpet down for 20 odd years and I want to replace it, that's not synthetic carpet.
Yeah, and I heard some commentary around that we haven't had synthetic carpets long enough to, in terms of, the length of wool. We were talking there earlier about Amy Blakely's petition to the government, and I do know from commentary from Craig Smith with Damien O'Connor that the potential opportunity to put it throughout our government buildings, and of course the Kiwi build that we need, has come down to a price decision. Is it still that much of a margin between the two?
Yeah, it's. I think the price decision's a wrong one, because you have to look at longevity over the total cost of something. So, the carpets that go into Housing New Zealand houses is really, really cheap synthetics. We don't even make carpets that cheap. So, if you want to look after the health and well-being of the people who live in the houses and have longevity of the carpets, then you've got to look at the total cost over time, not just at the price of getting the carpet into an actual Housing New Zealand house.
I was just thinking about the insulation grants that the Greens are very heavy on in healthy homes. Can we jump on this bandwagon?
There's many things you can jump on. One is, you've said fire. If your house catches on fire and you've got a synthetic carpet, then it's likely to go. There's smell. You've got 6 times more chance of smelling pets on a synthetic carpet than what you have on a wall. There's equivalent weight-wise, there's 22,000 equivalent weight plastic bags on a house load of carpet, and no one's buying plastic bags at supermarkets anymore. There's moisture. A wool carpet will take moisture out of the air. It's hypoallergenic. So, and stain, we believe, from the work that we've done, is about the same between both carpets. So there's a lot of myths out there that needs to be busted, and we're going to give it a good crack. And we call it wool is the forgotten fibre. And we are going to be pushing it as hard as we can, because we believe when people do see the differences and look at the benefits, then they will switch.
Has there been any pushback?
There not a lot. Most of the feedback from our announcement has been positive, but I think we're preaching to some of the converted. There's some retailers who are not so happy because we supply them synthetics. But if we really want to be authentic as a company, then we have to make a stand, and we can't be half pregnant.
And what do you make of the government jumping on board what could be simply an industry's problem with the latest strategy that's been announced?
Oh, the wool strategy, which I was part of that group. It's I think that in itself is not going to solve the problems, but at least we're thinking about it, and I believe, putting carpet in government housing is a statement the government could make, because they're looking after the health and well-being of their tenants. But I think we will not have a stronger wool price, or the price of strong wool will not grow, I don't believe, without a strong flooring sector. Strong wool flooring sector. So we all need to get behind it.
Yeah. Okay. And so considerably, I've got the farmers in my ear. I can feel them. How are we going to pass that down the value chain?
Well, if the demand grows for wool and carpet, then New Zealand, I think is it about 20% of the wool clip has gone into carpet? Then I think the whole price will lift up, because demand will lift, and you'll see some trends happening across the world. Australia, we're pushing hard to go in Australia. So I think as we take some of the demand, you'll find that the price will lift.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
And we are prepared to pay a premium for the right wool too.
And that's a question that I was discussing with David Ackland around shed preparation and farmers actually caring about wool and not taking their eye off the ball in just terms of the meat game for sheep. From a quality assurance program and specifications that you require for supply, what could a strong message to strong wool farmers tonight right now be in terms of upping their game to reach these premiums should they come?
Well, I think the general quality of what we get is spot on. I do believe we need to align some standards, so we all have the same standards of quality. And we don't need farmers to go down to one share a year and not look after their wool, because it just becomes problematic. But I do believe we should hang in there, because I think we are at a crest of a wave. I do believe that the world is waking up to plastics. and wool. They haven't quite made the connection yet with plastics. You know, you got all these Coke bottles you're walking on the floor. It's once that connection's made with the consumer, I think you'll find that the demand will grow.
So can we expect some very provocative marketing, Paul?
Yes, we'll call it not provocative, maybe clever, but it's more about we can either promote the virtues or discredit the competitor, I guess, and it's we'd rather promote the positives. But yes, we're working on that now. We're probably going to do a launch in around September and some marketing campaigns. And I think some of the stuff that's coming out is quite thought-provoking. And so rather than provocative, maybe let's call it thought-provoking.
Sorry, I just had to put that in there because a lot of anti-wool marketing has been extremely provocative and, of course, as you've just discussed, extremely misleading as well. Thank you so much for putting up the good fight on behalf of strong wool farmers across New Zealand and passionate wool producers that we are here in this country, and let's all ride that renaissance together. Thank you so much, CEO for Cavalier Corporation, Paul Elstone, with the announcement that they will go to 100% wool carpets and rugs. It's very, very exciting, and I know that Amy Blakely, who's taking her petition to government next week, will be just as excited about this sea change. Now, that's all we've got time for tonight on Serious Country, and I just have to let you know tomorrow's show we have in the bag, recorded this afternoon, and it will play out tomorrow night from 7 o'clock. I have to head to the capital in a very important function that I must MC. I'm very excited about joining the team with FMG tomorrow evening. And of course, earlier that day, don't forget what is tomorrow, Joel? And it's not Father's Day.
What's tomorrow?
It is the National Morning Tea Shout for rural women across the country. All you need to do is bake some baking for somebody you want to say thank you to, who has helped you throughout COVID lockdown, has gone the extra mile. It might be as simple as putting some scones in the mailbox for the postie. Or why not, if you're not much of a baker like myself, why don't you just take somebody to a local cafe? So remember, it's a nationwide Rural Woman Morning Tea Shout, and I am excited to be in the Rural Woman headquarters with the team tomorrow as well. And of course, so tomorrow we'll be back and then live again from a Monday. I'm loving the suggestions coming in on email, and I am getting a lot on wool, surprisingly, which is great. Sarah@periummedia.com, or head into the inbox on any of my social medias. I do check them very regularly and love hearing from you. So wherever you are in the country, under the pressures of shearing, calving, lambing, whatever it is, in whatever part of the food and fibre sector that you work in, good night and go well. This is Sarah's